Hello, this is David Baumblatt from Terrabent Leadership. We're going to do a video today about that shooting that's happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Probably saw it on the news. And like I said many times, it's going to get worse, going to get real worse. One thing I want to do is this is also a political divide, kind of like January 6th was a political divide. And on January 6th, so this is, I guess you could say back then, the MAGA was against the police. Now we're for the police. Kind of like same thing. It's going ping pong. So what do I keep saying about leadership? Good judgment. You've got to have good judgment. A lot of times people don't have good judgment. Why? A lot of things, they get their emotions in the way, or they're afraid, so they go to the stronger party, or they're working for the highest bidder. But really, if you stay neutral, you'll able to keep your judgment solid, and that's based upon principles. You have to have principles, whether it's come from whatever. So what am I talking about? Well, on January 6th, I've said many times, I did not consider January 6th to be a national security event. What I considered it to be is a protest gone out of hand. And I believe that there were some MAGA people, they should have been in jail, a slap on the wrist, a warning, I don't know, 30 days jail for the biggest offender, something like that. But it was a minor, it depends, but I'm saying it wasn't national security number one. I think most of the people should have just got a warning, slap on the wrist, whatever, a couple days jail time. If you obviously did some assaults of the police, that's a different story. But again, nothing major. Anyone that did more than a year in prison, it's like, what? So now, what I do want to do in leadership is this. That shooting, we're going to see the video. Oh, that was a bad shoot. And the story is about shoot. But what I do want to know in terms of leadership, you could still call that a bad shoot and not change your opinion, meaning you're pro-Trump, you're pro-ICE, you're pro-law enforcement. I don't know what pro-law enforcement, pro-military is. So people say it, but they don't. I said many times, can you support me? So you know the story. But anyway, you could still stay with your same political ideology, but you got to call it like it is. That was a bad shoot, people. And I'm telling you, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And so before we do this, I'll just show you a quick one. We're going to do one quick thing, and then we're going to go back to this. But and this also goes about Trump. The power is shifting in the world, and it's also shifting in America. Just like when I talked about before about Civil War, and people are like, well, are you kidding me? Americans would never kill each other. Of course we would. You know we would. And so what I do want to do is let's just share a quick thing. This is the same thing I talked about last video. And as you can see here, what does it says? It says the U.S. will reduce their defense. So we have American troops stationed in South Korea. You know the deal, defending South Korea from North Korea, this and that. And what did I write up there? I was like, America's no longer the world's police. And Donald Trump, this is nothing against him. He's using common sense, and that is America's just not going to have the power to police the world. And that's why I think, again, he's doubling down on the Western Hemisphere. And so hopefully everyone saw that. Yeah, South Korea, it's time for South Korea to build up their military. I won't talk about too much on this because I want to save it for another video, but it'll be about nuclear war. But anyway, the power is shifting overseas. The power is shifting in America as well. We're going to split. It's going to be civil war. So what I want to do is we're going to show some videos, but what I do want to emphasize this, you don't have to change your opinion. I mean, I'm not for the Democrats. No doubt about it. And you got to remember something. For me to defend this protester, you got to remember, what would the liberals label me as? They would label me as a white supremacist. I don't believe women should vote. So you can imagine, I wouldn't be anywhere near, you could say, the liberals' friend. But it is what it is. It was a bad shot. And that person's a U.S. citizen, like you, like me. And I tell you, if you allow this behavior to go, but I've seen this before, this same behavior, you probably still have the taste on your tongue of COVID, or that euphoria or pandemonium about COVID, the vaccine. Well, guess what? When I was in the FBI, the war on terror, same thing. The war on terror, the Taliban, all this stuff. What a joke. What a joke the war on terror is. So now we're looking at this, and it's easier for people to get on the bandwagon. And I would say there's many ways I would look at this, but I'd say, again, to ICE, focus on the foreign nationals. Focus on the foreign nationals. Now, some people would say, yeah, but what about those American citizens getting in their way? I get it, but I think all these situations are misdemeanors, and they should be handled. But there could be a different strategy or tactics, and I think Trump's going the wrong way. but I still stand by it. If ICE focuses on foreign nationals, it is what it is. But if you get into contact with American citizenships, you watch yourself. We're paying for your salary. You work for us, and that was a bad shoot. Let me go. Let me just highlight this one thing here. This is the MAGA crowd. That again, I consider myself more of a nationalist than MAGA. I'm not so much. I think of MAGA. There's a lot of fakeness to these MAGA people. Remember, these are the same MAGA people that I'm like, hey, can you support me? So let me just bring this up. I saw this today, and hopefully everyone can see this. So, I don't know who she is, but she's got a big following. Let me see what following is. Whatever, 600,000 people. That's a lot of people. So anyway, her name is Sassafras. She's one of these MAGA people. So the person we're going to talk about today is this guy, Alex Preddy, who seems to be, again, I could be wrong. He seems to be from an upstanding background, whatever. So she writes, this guy never should have brought a gun to a protest. He's also part of that signal group, stuff like that. Okay, we could talk about the other things, but this is what I said. I misspoke. I should say I did not. I'm like, you're telling me this woman, you're going to start telling me, an American citizen, where I cannot bring a legally owned firearm to locations where I'm legally allowed to have it? Was he legally allowed to own the firearm? Yes. Was he legally allowed to have the firearm in that public setting? Yes. Now, everything else we could argue with. He shouldn't have done this, but that fact right there, and she's gotten blowback. Hopefully, everyone, let me push this down. So she's gotten blowback from the NRA, National Riflemen's Association, and the Second Amendment. I mean, think about what's MAGA for? The Second Amendment. So we could talk about his behavior, but once you start saying you shouldn't have brought a gun in here, hold on. Let's just do the facts. Was that person legally allowed to have a firearm at that point and that time? He was. So for someone who wants to be big pro Second Amendment, the right, that's not a good argument, and that's a dangerous path. So again, I look at this as one, he's a U.S. citizen. If he was a foreign national, it depends. Because again, I agree that ICE should be focusing on foreign nationals. He was a U.S. citizen, number one. He was legally allowed to have that firearm, and he was illegally allowed to have it at that location. It was a public location. He was doing a protest. Now, what his behavior was, we could argue. I still think as a former FBI agent, that was a bad shoot. And we're going to go into that. But let's just go into this video so at least we get into what's exactly going on. And of course, we know this. The left is really hopping on this. Meaning they're saying, look at this, ICE has gone out of hand. And the right now, we're defending it. I'm telling you, though, if you're right, you could still favor Trump, favor ICE, favor the deportations, but still say that was a bad shot. That guy's a U.S. citizen like you and like me. And if it can happen to him, it can happen to us. Now, if you don't think it's a bad shot, we'll go into it. I think it was a bad shot. I think the other one with the woman, I say again, that woman, she was a crazy liberal. She wouldn't like me, and I wouldn't like her. But she's a U.S. citizen. I'm telling you, what did she do? Misdemeanor. And what was she doing? I don't believe intent-wise she was trying to run the ICE agent over. I think she was trying to flee the scene. I mean, obviously, she didn't do a good job running the ICE agent. Something happened, but that was a bad shoot. That ICE agent should not have been positioned there. But if you're like, dude, she should have known better, and bang, she's dead. All right, but I'm just saying she's a U.S. citizen. If you play that logic, one day it could be with yours. So like I said, ICE, how they are with foreign nationals, ICE, how they are with U.S. citizens, that should be apples and oranges. I say again, that should be apples and oranges, their behavior. If that same thing happened to a foreign national, I might look at it differently and say, well, especially if that was an illegal foreign national. Well, you're illegal. You shouldn't have been in the country in the first place. So you're already a criminal. But as a U.S. citizen, and what technically did she do? And what technically did this guy do? I don't know. I mean, misdemeanor, if that. I mean, it's something that even as federal agents, what are you doing? We have better stuff to do. Let's do this video and just start getting the main picture on what's going on here. Yeah, let's do this first. And this is where the left is trying to use the right, but either way, let's go on this.
Concerns among a group of Americans not known for criticizing the Trump administration. advocates for the Second Amendment.
So this is where I'm going on. So if you're going to be far right or right, whatever, MAGA, and you're going to be a pro Second Amendment, you got to be very careful. And I think you're plain wrong to say he should not have had a gun or a firearm at that place in time. It was his legal right to do that. Again, we'll talk about the other stuff he did, but I think that's not only a dead argument, it's hypocritical on your part. If you're going to be pro Second Amendment, you should be pro American citizens legally owning firearms, legally using firearms, legally carrying firearms. That's a constitutional right. And that person was exercising that right in that specific regard.
Federal government says part of the reason he was killed is because he had a gun. But Preddy was licensed to carry, and the video shows that the weapon stayed in his waistband. One Trump administration official said online, quote, if you approach...
I'm telling you, there's a lot of strange things going on with this. I just imagine what type of ICE agents. I'm telling you, I will go down, just like when I called the shots with Afghanistan, Iraq. That was a bad shot. Again, it doesn't mean you have to change your political ideology. Stay with Trump, that's a bad shot. That could be you one day as an American citizen.
Law enforcement with a gun, there is a high likelihood they will be legally justified in shooting you. Here is the NRA's response. Responsible public voices should be awaiting a full investigation, not making generalizations and demonizing law-abiding citizens. So joining me now to talk about this is Dana Lash. She's a radio host and former spokesperson for the National Rifle Association.
Now look at me. I agree with both these people. Who are these people? One is a woman. I don't think she deserves the right to vote. And this guy sounds like he looks like a mulatto. I'm not big into mixed kids, and I still believe America belongs to the white man. So you take a guess. You think those two people are going to like a guy like me? Probably not. We're not see eye to eye. But you focus on the facts at this specific time. And does this American citizen deserve to be shot? And all three of us, from definitely my political out, you got a lefty, you got she's on the right, and you got me who's far right, probably. Guess what, though? We all agree it was a bad shot. That's not how you treat a U.S. citizen, because I am a nationalist. And as a nationalist, you should have pride, respect, and protect the national sovereignty of your citizens. That was a bad shot.
Dana, good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So Alex Preddy, as you know, had a legal right to carry that weapon, but federal officials like Kristi Noem seem to question why he turned up armed at the protest. You yourself have said that you've gone to protests and you have been armed yourself. When you heard what she said,
correct,
what was your reaction to that?
My first thought was I feel like the administration needs to be a little careful with language, and language is incredibly important. I mean, we're not nitpicking and trying to police language for some sort of...
No, you say what you want, but if you say something wrong, you gotta mean it. So I don't know where she's going. You say what you want. It's called freedom of speech. But if you're wrong, you're wrong. And the point is they're wrong. To say you should not bring a legally owned, legally carried firearm into a protest. What are you, my mother, government? It's not. So it's wrong.
Gatekeeping role. It's because certain words invoke certain statutes and certain penalties as a result of that. So we have a duty to be very, very careful with the language that we use. So I wish that Secretary Noem and others would be aware of that, because simply approaching law enforcement with a firearm isn't indicative of ill intent, nor is it a crime. And as you accurately said, I have over the years, many years, have been armed at protests, both concealed carry and open carry. I have been right in.
And I know that people are probably saying, okay, David, he had the right to carry a firearm, but he shouldn't have done that behavior. We'll get into that. I understand where you're getting, but we have to make the point first. He was legally allowed to carry a firearm. And no, this thing, even as a former law enforcement, you want to carry a firearm into legally allowed locations, that's your freedom. That should not be provoking law enforcement to use deadly force. But we'll talk about his behavior coming up.
The front-face presence of law enforcement while open carrying. But there is a difference, though, and I really want people to pay attention to this. At no point was I ever detained, nor was I shot at, or was I involved in any kind of altercation with law enforcement, because I did not insert myself into any kind of federal investigation.
So that's what she's trying to say. She's like, okay, I defend him. He had a gun, but he should not have inserted himself. We'll get to that point.
And that's what's really important here. There's a difference between carrying by law enforcement, and there's a difference between carrying while in commission of felonious activity. And according to U.S. statute, this is federal law, you cannot insert yourself or impede law enforcement operations.
Okay, that's enough. We'll talk from her. But the key is we're just looking at it as, hey, Shane, I see you. Yeah, I'm not too. So again, we would probably all agree. I think we didn't see the whole video, but I think at the end she mentioned too that she thought it was a bad shoot. Obviously, the liberal black guy, he thinks it's a bad shoot. But the point remained is, we'll go through it, that the part of having a firearm at a legalized event, whatever, protest, that's nothing wrong, people. And remember, if you don't exercise your consent, you'll lose it. That's what people look at me. They're like, I don't see any censorship, because you might not be exercising your freedom of speech, meaning you may not speak, or if you do speak, you say exactly what you're supposed to speak. You know, the thought about freedom of speech is being able to say stuff where other people or the other government, meaning not the other government, meaning your government, doesn't want you to say, but they still tolerate it. Why? Because it's the First Amendment. Same thing with the Second Amendment. If none of us have guns, if none of us want to use guns, do we really have a Second Amendment? The Second Amendment is to utilize that. And again, does he have a legal right to have that firearm? Yes. Does he have a legal right to carry it? Yes. Does he have a legal right to have that firearm in that location? It was a public setting on a public road. Yes. So we just want to make sure that. But this thought that mom and dad government says, or you hear these MAGA influencers, he shouldn't have brought a gun to a protest. I don't know what you're talking about. That sounds really retarded. That's like someone looking at me saying, well, you shouldn't say this, you shouldn't say that. Okay, that's fine. But the First Amendment, it doesn't really get into my way in that. Say what you want. So let's go to another video, and we're going to get a little into specifics about this. One of the things to realize is, we're going to go, because some people can say, well, David, what's the solution? There is. We'll go into it at the very end. But one thing you have to understand is, a lot of these federal agents, they're not trained to do this stuff. The FBI, we're technically not first responders. When I saw, and let me tell you also too, I should have said this, the law enforcement are corrupt people. I mean, they're absolutely corrupt. I mean, look at me as a former FBI agent. Look at Kash Patel now. Before the FBI was corrupt, now that MAGA is in charge, Donald Trump, I guess we fixed it. Meaning that I guess Dan Bongino went in there for 10 months and he fixed it. This is the guy. So you have to come from my view of being in, you could say, the inside of law enforcement. They're corrupt. Why? It's very simple. They've illegally investigated on me and they don't want to talk about it because the law enforcement, like many other entities, if they do something illegal or immoral, what will they do? They'll just hide from it. They'll cover it up. They don't. The Epstein files. They're doing that. So you have to understand, I'm not the normal FBI agent, meaning I look at the FBI, I think it's corrupt. It just is what it is. I mean, the only good thing that Dan Bongino would have done, or I would have tried to do, is just downsize it, because I don't think you're going to change it. So let's first and foremost say that when people are like, God, these law enforcement are upstanding people, I don't know who they're recruiting today for ICE, but I don't see in that law enforcement. And for all these MAGA people keep saying, well, I disagree with you, David. I'm backing law enforcement. Well, I'm law enforcement. You don't really back me. I mean, it's time for my case to come out in the open, so no one really cares. But anyway, let me go back with this ICE. Federal agents don't have the training to handle these situations. This is where me as an FBI agent, I'm actually going to give credit to the local policeman. I'm going to give you an example. I have many stories to tell you about sort of the first responder. As the FBI, when we make an arrest, we use what's called the initiative. We have already gathered the intelligence. We know we've got the arrest warrant. We know who this person is, how many of they are, how many weapons do they have, where's their location, they're under surveillance, we're listening on their phone. Like, we have an enormous advantage. We choose generally the time, the place, of this and that. The FBI, in my case, just screwed up. That's another thing we can talk about. But generally speaking, when the FBI says go, it's over. However, what about the local policeman, the beat cop? He gets a 911 call and he says, yeah, go to this house, there's domestic violence. Well, what the hell's domestic violence? Is it the guy just smack his wife around and okay? Or is this guy got a machete and a handgun? He's just firing people. So that local cop enters situations where they don't know what's going on. Or think of a regular traffic stop. Now, the FBI, we would actually utilize, that's another, so we'll utilize law enforcement to do traffic stops when we think they're terrorists or spies, but they won't know that it's under the FBI. So that's different because we'll tell the cop exactly what to do. But generally speaking, when a policeman pulls you over, he'll do that quick license plate check or something, but he doesn't really know what he's getting into. So the facts need to be clear. The FBI, we are technically not first responders. So you've probably saw the videos before where the FBI was patrolling the streets of Washington, D.C. I think you remember that months ago. I don't know if the American citizens thought that that's normal or not. It's totally not normal. We have no training in that. I mean, sure, if you're ex-military or maybe some were ex-police, you kind of use common sense, but we don't do that stuff. We, generally speaking, as FBI agents, we're investigators, we're intelligence gatherers, we're counterterrorism. That's what we do. So in this, and ICE is also a form of federal agencies, but they should be focusing on foreign nationals. So what we're doing now is they're being put in positions where they're on the streets. You know, you got protesters. But if you look at me and say, David, you're a former FBI agent, what would you do if there were these protesters? I don't know. I mean, use common sense. That's the best thing I could say. But the FBI is not trained to do that. And that's what I'm going to tell you later on what I think needs to be changed. But I go back to my point. If ICE sticks to foreign nationals, I'm okay. Because if a mistake happens with a foreign national, it depends. If a mistake happens with a U.S. citizen, it's wrong, people, and we've got to call it out. But what happened there is a bad shoot. But I do want you to know is don't overestimate these ICE people that they're trained on. We and the FBI, we are not trained to do that stuff. I don't know how to feel. Like if they said, FBI, we need riot control. We have no training in riot control. So you've got to remember where you are in the spectrum of what type of agency or unit is this and what are you trained to do. But that probably be if it was the local police, and I think you understand there's a standoff where the Minnesota police or even the Minnesota National Guard probably is going to go to civil war. Sooner or later, it's going to get a civil war. They are trained. I'm not saying the National Guard is, but the local police, they are the best ones. Not only is that what they're trained to do, but they also know the community, or they should know the community. So they have much more rapport. But you get these ICE agents from outside the state coming in there, they don't know how to do this stuff. For the same reason the FBI, we don't know. It's a dangerous thing. It's going to get worse. The same reason that you saw on the news here that now Donald Trump is talking to Governor Tim Walz and they're trying to do a deal because they both realize this thing's going to blow up. But the way I look at it is it's going to blow up sooner or later. You're going to see. If you think this is bad, you haven't seen anything yet. But let's go at least into the details here to just see, because I'm sure some people would still disagree and say, nah, it's a good shoot. He's dead, whatever.
A number of Republicans are joining Democrats, calling for a full investigation into the killing of Alex Preddy by Border Patrol agents in Minneapolis.
What we're seeing on TV, it's causing deep concerns over federal tactics and accountability.
Senator Bill Cassidy calling the situation disturbing, writing the credibility of ICE and DHS.
I'm telling you, I've called these shots my whole life, whether it's Afghanistan or Iraq. That was a bad shoot. And I'm telling you, if this thing continues to go and more American citizens get smoked, and that's what it was, that guy got smoked. Not very good. But there's still people in MAGA that refuse to say this. It was a bad shoot.
DHS are at stake. Senator Lisa Murkowski adding, ICE agents do not have carte blanche in carrying out their duties. Others taking issue with how quickly the Trump administration made an assessment, labeling Preddy a domestic terrorist without providing.
Oh, geez, like me, I'm a domestic terrorist as well. They throw around terms like this like it's no tomorrow.
Any evidence. John Mitnick, who served in President Trump's first term and helped establish the Department of Homeland Security, criticizing the agency, saying, I'm enraged and embarrassed by DHS's lawlessness, fascism, and cruelty. But top Trump officials continue to double down.
But at least we have the Indian man in charge, right? Kash Patel. This is the guy that he knows about me as a former FBI agent with FBI corruption, and he has totally ignored me. You think that's normal? That not even to communicate with me? I'm not talking him personally, but him sending one of his agents to say, okay, let's see if my allegations are true or not. Why is he not communicating? Because he knows it's true, and he's like, let's just cover it up. This guy's a crook.
FBI Director Kash Patel suggested it is illegal to bring a gun to a protest.
You cannot.
What? So I didn't see this video yet. Let's see what Mr. Indian Man has to say about bringing a gun. Maybe he's confusing India. This is America, Mr. Cash. This is not India. We're allowed to have guns here.
Bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple.
Overnight, President Trump.
Where did that law come? That's an interesting law. This is the FBI director. Thanks for the legal constitutional. I think he's talking about India, though.
Telling the Wall Street Journal he doesn't like any shooting, adding, quote, but I don't like it when somebody goes into a protest and he's got a very powerful, fully.
Yeah, Shane, I saw your comment. I should talk more about gold and silver. Did I call the shots? I left America in 2010. The only thing I knew that would be a good investment is gold, obviously silver. I'm still pro crypto, but your gold and silver are going to be really good investments.
Loaded gun with 2 magazines loaded up with bullets also. That doesn't play good either. It's a stark contrast to what many Republicans, including the president, had to say about Kyle Rittenhouse, seen here carrying an assault.
This, it's a great point. I didn't even think about this, but this is where the right and left. And what do I think about Kyle Rittenhouse? I think it looked like a pretty good shoot to me. It is what it is, but you gotta focus on your principles and stop looking at politics, because politics many times it's done to the highest bidder versus principles. But yeah, Kyle Rittenhouse, I think that was a good shoot, but this one was a bad shoot for the cops.
Old-style rifle through Kenosha, Wisconsin in 2020 before opening fire, killing 2 men. He was acquitted on the charges. President Trump called him a very nice young man. Minnesota officials say Preddy was a lawful gun owner with a permit to carry, a right protected under the Second Amendment. Republican Congressman Thomas Massey posting, carrying a firearm is not a death sentence. It's a
So I'm learning more about this guy Massey. Sounds like him and Donald Trump are not getting along, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. You're going to see it. It's going to break up. But he nails it right here. It's a constitutional right. What are you talking about? Again, we'll look at the video on what his behavior was. Some people could say he still deserved to get shot for his behavior, but not for carrying a gun. End of story. You don't just because and if you're a policeman who gets so nervous that when you see a person legally carrying a firearm, you starting to get trigger finger, probably you're not in the right job.
Constitutionally protected God-given right. The NRA even speaking out, posting, responsible public voices should be awaiting a full investigation, not making generalizations.
I would say the same thing. If you are pro Second Amendment, I would say I want a full investigation on this, because this doesn't look good, and I would not jump to conclusions.
And demonizing law-abiding citizens. The president's predecessors calling for it all to stop. Former President Barack Obama.
Hey, look at Barack Obama. I still can't believe we had a black man as a president. That I wouldn't tolerate that. But guess what? When I started probably agreeing with this guy, then something is there's probably some principles in it. But if he says it's a bad shoot, I agree with him. It's a bad shoot.
Said the shooting should be a wake-up call to every American.
Exactly. Again, that guy was a U.S. citizen. Be very careful.
And former President Bill Clinton stating, at every turn, the people in charge have lied to us, told us not to believe.
Absolutely. What did I tell you about the FBI? That agency's corrupt.
Believe what we've seen with our own eyes.
And over on Capitol Hill, Senate Democrats are now trying to take a stand.
Yeah, and I've changed. So we're going to watch 2 more videos. But I tell you, even with the Boeing Corporation and Amazon, Boeing is basically the American government. It's just amazing. You grow up really thinking how these big organizations, like the FBI, like West Point, it is so corrupt. Because why? We've turned into corporations, and it. Corporations will do whatever for the money is. And that's what politics is. It's really a lot of time for the money. Like I said, I think Donald Trump, generally speaking, he's putting American corporations first. That doesn't necessarily mean American citizens first. Why? Because we work for the corporations. But anyway, let's go. I see Shane. Yeah, Bill, like how you lied about the Oklahoma. Yeah, I mean, Massey isn't even a millionaire. Like I said, and the point about me is don't even assume that just because I'm saying ICE was wrong and that now I'm for the Republicans or I'm from the Democrats. I basically said, I think they both suck. And when you have a guy like me who physically left America 15 years ago, that kind of speaks for themselves. But these people are corrupt. But again, if you believe in nationalism, you have to believe in the U.S. citizenship. Now, I also believe we cannot hand out the U.S. citizenship like it's a Cracker Jack box. I think Trump wants to do away with birthright citizenship. That's a good point. He definitely doesn't like illegal immigration, but I still think he likes legal immigration. But you have to protect who can become a U.S. citizen. But in the end, I'll tell you how I would fix this thing. Let's just do 2 more videos because we got to get into a little bit what happened with this guy, because some people still believe probably that was a good shoot and this guy should have got smoked. But it's a sad story, I think.
Fallout over the latest deadly shooting by federal agents in Minneapolis. This is video of the incident that appears to contradict government statements. NBC's Alice Barr explains what we know this morning.
This morning, a growing outcry over the shooting death of 37-year-old Alex Preddy by federal law enforcement in Minneapolis, the city's second involving federal law enforcement this month. As protesters react to the multiple videos capturing the scene, the Trump administration is defending the officers. The Department of Homeland Security posting that Preddy, quote, approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun.
When they tried to get him to disengage, he became aggressive and resisted them throughout that process. These officers used their training, followed their protocols, and were in fear of their life.
Yeah, I'm not too impressed with the training, but it is what it is. We'll watch the video.
The videos, shot from various angles, show federal agents shoving someone before Preddy steps in. Preddy.
The first thing I could say is anyone that's seen this video, the guy at the very highest, what was he doing? Meaning what charge? I mean, I don't even know. The FBI, even ICE, we wouldn't investigate this. A misdemeanor, impeding traffic. Like, again, the FBI, this guy would not even be on our radar. I don't know what he was doing. Obstructing. Either way, what I'm trying to do is whatever he was doing illegally in your mind, this is not high level stuff. So how did it escalate so high to use deadly force? That's the question.
Is then pepper sprayed in the face by an officer while holding his phone and is then wrestled to the ground. DHS said.
So that's the first one. Why was this guy wrestled to the ground? I mean, he was pepper sprayed. He's kind of go on like, what do you do? And what are you going to apprehend him? You're going to arrest him for what? What charge? What are we doing here?
He brandished a weapon, but the videos don't appear to show that. This one does show an agent appearing to remove a gun from Preddy's back waistband.
Okay, so this training doesn't look very good. So if the weapon was removed, that means he is now unarmed. So it sounds like there was some miscommunication with the police saying he's got a gun. And once that command comes out, he's got a gun, oh, you're going to get smoked.
Seconds before the shots are fired. Local officials say Preddy had a permit to carry, and groups like the Gun Owners of America are defending his right to bear arms while protesting as top Trump.
I'm telling you, to Americans, you better watch it. You keep thinking China and Russia are going to take away your freedoms. What did I always say? It's going to be the American government. And the only thing that's going to protect you from the American government is the Second Amendment. You better defend that Second Amendment.
Trump officials push back.
You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple.
I like this. I would want this quote to be shared throughout the internet and debated, because I would easily respond and say, yeah, you can. What's illegal about that?
Preddy was an ICU nurse for a Minneapolis VA hospital, his parents calling him kind-hearted and deeply caring.
He loved this country, but he hated what people were doing to it.
President Trump overnight calling it a dangerous situation for everyone to.
Don't fool yourself. Donald Trump, it is what it is. It's going to go down this road, but there's a reason why he's talking to Governor Walz, because they both know this thing could blow up fast. And it's going to blow up. Give it time. We're going down this path.
Demanded state and local officials cooperate with the administration's deportation efforts as those officials call on ICE to leave the state. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC.
All right, we're going to do one more video here.
Tonight, new videos raising questions of what exactly happened in the lead up to Alex Preddy's death. The Trump administration now doubling down on defense of the officers involved. Federal officials saying agents acted in self-defense. The Department of Homeland Security posting that Preddy approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun.
Yeah, even the way they word it, when I think of someone approach, I'm thinking that handgun is in his hand. If that is secured and he's not what's called brandishing, then he's exercising his Second Amendment constitutional right. But even the way they write it, this is how the FBI will word it, like I'm a domestic terrorist. If you read this, an individual approach you with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun, the way it's read, you think the person is wielding the weapon, holding it in his hand at the ready. But if it's in holstered, if it's being in his possession in a legal status, well then why make that point? It's a data point that the guy is armed, but the way this wording is, think about it. These law enforcement, they're scumbags. It really is. It's a shame. I don't want to say this because, like I said, when I left the FBI and I left America, I've never badmouthed the FBI or law enforcement because I just left. It just wasn't for me, and I want. But now that I'm back, the truth is, a lot of these people are really a lot of them are just too stupid, too lazy, and they're too afraid to get a real job in the civilian sector.
When he did that, interacting with those agents, when they tried to get him to disengage, he became aggressive and resisted them throughout that process. These officers used their training.
What is this woman doing? She needs to go home and take care of her babies. Like, why? If you're an American and we have a woman in charge of Homeland Security, that's like your wife is in charge of the security of your home. Who is in charge of the security of the home? The man. The husband, the father, end of story. Why do we have a woman in charge of the defense of our nation, domestic, homeland? That right there doesn't make any sense. She should be home taking care of her kids.
Their protocols and were in fear of their lives and the people around them. And that's how this tragedy unfolded.
At least 5 separate witness videos appear to show a different or contradicting sequence of events.
See, the way I'm looking at this, you have to see the full video. I mean, I don't think there is. You have to, like, as a good investigator, see what happened before. Again, at the highest level, I'd say this guy's a misdemeanor. But it looks like at one time they pepper sprayed him, and he was out of the scene. I mean, he was not a threat anymore to anyone. Like, we'll see the video. It looks like such a minor offense.
Seen from a sidewalk, the street, inside a store.
Oh my God!
And from a car just feet away. Videos show federal agents shoving a person with Preddy then stepping in. That's when an agent pepper sprays him in the face while Preddy clutches his phone.
So right there, that's what I'm saying. Once the pepper spray was given, he was really out of commission, Petty. I mean, he was walking away. I mean, so don't fool yourself. A lot of these cops want to agitate situations. Look at mine. My situation's the same way. They really want to agitate. They want to make a case. A lot of these guys are bullies.
Seconds later, several agents wrestle Preddy to the ground, where videos do not appear to show him brandishing a weapon, as DHS had stated. This angle showing an officer swing something.
Jesus, this is the best and the brightest. This is America's finest right here on an American citizen.
At Preddy's head. Pushing in on this video, you can see one agent reach behind Preddy, appearing to remove a gun from his waist.
So we're going to make an assumption, and that officer removed the firearm from this guy, Preddy. Once that happens, he is unarmed. So why are you shooting an unarmed man? Probably because there was miscommunication later. Some guy said gun, and they just smoked this guy. But once that firearm is removed, why did you shoot? He's unarmed. Not very good.
Band. As someone yells gun, that same agent appears to step away, and about a second later, the first shot is fired, followed by a flurry of gunshots.
Call an ambulance, please.
I think the key detail is, were the agents under the imminent threat of death or great bodily harm? And nowhere in that video does it show that he pointed a gun at them, brandished a gun at them. There's no piece where you can see him reaching for the gun.
Local officials say Preddy was a lawful gun owner with a permit for concealed carry. Border Patrol Chief Greg Bovino asked about this earlier.
Did the officers see the weapon? Did they see him brandishing the weapon at him?
Sure. Many videos out there, many different accounts
that you may see, all those minute details that will paint a true picture, not a freeze frame, not a freeze frame concept.
That's fine. Let's get an investigation. Meaning there's enough probable cause now to warrant an internal investigation. Let's get an internal investigation. Let's see what comes up. Maybe there are facts about this case that I did not see, but we still want to stick to our principles. If someone shows up legally owning a firearm, legally having to carry it at a location where they're illegally allowed to have it, well, then that's a moot point on that point alone.
And paint a larger picture of what really happened. That is why we investigate, so we can get to the truth, so there's not speculation.
Meanwhile, near a growing memorial in Minneapolis tonight. What do you see when you watch those videos?
An execution, an absolute execution. There's no.
She looks like an Asian woman. She shouldn't be allowed to have citizenship.
Every angle shows it, and they continued to fire bullets at him while his body was lifeless on the ground.
And tonight, regarding those officers involved in the death of Alex Preddy.
All right, we got this. So this is what we're going to do. Let's talk about quick leadership. I see sparring. We need armed right-wing protest in this. So yeah, you're going to see it. It's not going to work. So let's think about solution. The one is why are we there? Why are we even in Minnesota? And I want you to ask yourself, do you as an American really, really care about the people of Minnesota? I mean, that guy's an American citizen. He got smoked. I think a lot of people don't care. I get the whole thing about the Somalis and the foreign app, but do we really not care about it? I mean, there is another way to get these illegals out of our country, or we could just say, fine, have Minnesota keep them. So let's do one video that relates to Minnesota in this fraud. And this relates to a lot of these illegal immigrants and some. We're going to do one quick video, and then I'm going to do kind of the leadership on how I would do it. It's not going to work, but it's good to at least talk about it. Let's do the share here. Let's do 1 second. Let me get here. And let's see what this guy has to say.
Washington, D.C. is totally involved in this. And about the Somali fraud in Minnesota, USA, I really think people need to start seeing the bigger picture here. Do you really believe that some Somali people living there in Minneapolis could get away with defrauding the state for?
Probably not, considering they're probably not the most intelligent people around. So right now I'm tracking with this guy. He's making a good point.
Say $9-10 billion a year? Of course not. Washington, D.C. is totally involved in this and not only allowed it to happen, but made it happen. So
far, he's saying Washington, D.C., the globalist government, the globalist corporations, they are involved and they are to be blamed. Can't really argue with that logic either. Let's see what else he's got to say.
That's because Israel recently.
Oh, geez. That's a word that's verboten. You cannot talk about Israel. This guy should be censored.
Recognized Somaliland, part of Somalia, as an independent state. Why would Israel do so? Well, they need a place to deport the Palestinians to. But you don't just get a piece of land where you can deport 2 million people to. You have to pay for it. And that's what this is. The U.S. is the greatest ally of Israel. Remember, the United States citizens, middle-class people, taxpayers, are going to pay for that. This whole scam, the Somali care system scam, whatever, to me looks like an annual rental agreement where the U.S. taxpayer is now forced to pay $10 billion a year to the Somali elites, to Al-Shabaab, the terrorist organization, and so on, in exchange for a piece of land where Israel can then deport the Palestinians to. Your whole government is corrupt, okay? And this is just Somalia. Imagine.
Can't really argue with that.
What the USA is doing with India. Imagine how much money you're bleeding to India.
So what I want to do is ask yourself this. So you'd say, all right, David, you're the leader. How would you solve this? Well, the way I would do it is think about it. And I got to go back to my point. How many times have you ever seen mainstream? Obviously, I'm not mainstream. I'm censored. But any type of mainstream right or left where they've talked about maybe it's time to get a divorce, a national divorce, split. Have you ever heard it? CNN or Fox News. Have you ever heard it? I don't think I've ever heard it. If there is, we'll see it. Now, you might have this one politician here, one there, but nothing has ever really got to mainstream. You don't hear Donald Trump ever talk about it. That's a no-go. Why is that? So what could be possible the solution? Well, one solution is this. It won't happen, but it will lead to this separation. That's why these globals don't want to do it. So here we are. I'm President Trump of America, and I said, listen, Minnesota, the government, the governor, the police, the National Guard, we need your cooperation. I'm going to send in my ICE, and I want you to cooperate with us to kick out all the foreign nationals, or we'll say illegal foreign nationals. We don't have to go so overboard initially, but illegal foreign nationals, meaning this is what ICE's job is. And if the Minnesota, if they were cooperating with us, we probably wouldn't have so many of these problems. But they're not, because there's division, part of corruption. So what could a president do? He could immediately say, now you're an American taxpayer, what do you think? Especially with all that fraud going on. He could immediately say, from now on, Minnesota, the federal government is not giving you any support. Zero, no finances, anything. We're going to cut you off until you want to cooperate with us. Most Americans would be like, that's the best way to get out of the fraud is just stop paying them any money. Just for the same reason, if you're an American citizen, sort of what I did, if you stop paying your taxes, that's probably the only surefire solution that your money is not going to be used for fraud, waste, and abuse. So the American government could say, listen, the federal government could say, listen, Minnesota, you have two choices. You will help us or work with us about kicking out of the illegal aliens, or we're going to shut you off. The problem is if Minnesota, and I think they might do that, which I could care less. That's what I'm saying, the split. If they say, fine, we don't need your money. And then maybe another state would say, well, fine, we don't need your money in the split. But you have it. You have to ask yourself, look at the split that's happening more and more in America. Meaning, if I was an ICE agent and I was in the state of Minnesota trying to do my job, well, picture me as a good ICE agent. I'm like, listen, I have no problem with American citizens, but I just want to kick out these illegal immigrants. But then these own liberal American citizens in Minnesota, the government is treating me like this. I would even say, Mr. President, Mr. ICE Director, why don't we just leave? Why don't we just leave and separate this state? Like let this Somaliland, Minnesota just float off in the distance and let's separate. I think a lot of Americans would be like, I'll buy that for $1. I'm not going to make. But the American government won't do that. Why? Because they're part of the globalist regime. They won't do that. But you have to ask yourself, out of all the leadership gurus, all the political gurus, mainstream, it's never heard of one solution, a peaceful separation. But that's one way. I mean, I would do it. But the point is, I would be like, listen, to the people of Minnesota, we're going to help you. Go fuck you. We're Minnesota. We don't want your help. All right. I mean, think about it. If you were in a relationship with a woman that she was doing that, sooner or later, you'd probably say, it's time for us to split because I'm not going to take this disrespect. So it's obviously in some way, shape, or form, ICE, and ICE is a form of the federal government. They're not wanted in Minnesota. Why don't we just leave to include all our taxpayer money that's spent there? So meaning the federal taxpayer money. So you're a person from Texas that pays your federal taxes. Any money that goes to Minnesota, it's gone. It's done. But what would that do? It would start a cataclysm of other states saying, well, then screw you and this and that. And it would start rupturing the union. My point, though, it's going to happen sooner or later. It's going to happen sooner or later. But don't be so retarded to think, no, we're one big family. We're Americans. We care about each other. That guy got smoked. He's an American citizen. I don't think a lot of people care about him. Meaning, the liberals maybe, but I think a lot of MAGA people like fuck him. So when I proposed in 2010, I said, I think we're going to civil war. I remember people looked at me like, you're crazy. We're not going to kill each other because they're thinking back to the Civil War, how it was like Saab. It's going to start as an insurgency. And when I say insurgency, I'm not talking about evil because people like me would be, meaning if you're far left or you're far right, you're both the enemy of the state. And I keep saying many times the far left and the far right shouldn't be fighting. Why? Because we have a common enemy. Maybe it's the federal government. But wouldn't that be a common solution, a peaceful solution to say, listen, we believe that Minnesota is just, you're a MAGA person. We're saying you're a MAGA and you say, listen, Minnesota is just gone off the deep end. They're liberals. There's illegals there. There's this fraud from Somalia, like all this stuff. It is now a bad apple. Why don't we just cut ties? So that way you as an American taxpayer knows that at least your tax money, no more, is going to go. So the only taxes they're going to get is state taxes, state or whatever some other foreign governments are giving, but not yours. That's never been. It will never be an option for the same reason that during our Revolutionary War, George Washington knew it too. There's no negotiating with the king. There's only one thing, guns and ammo. The same thing. There's no negotiating with the federal government. You think we're negotiating with Greenland? I think we're going to take Greenland by force one way or another. Do you think we negotiated with Venezuela? Do you think we do that? We don't. It's guns and ammo. That's why people respect us. And I'm telling you, the American government ain't happening. Unless you bring guns and ammo to the table or you leave. At least I attempted to leave. I'm still in the tractor beam of the empire. But that's the only way it's going to happen. So that's what I would look. If you'd say, hey, well, David, what's the bigger solution? How to do it? Well, I'm going to say, one, if you think it's bad now, you haven't seen anything. It's going to get bad, especially when this economy tanks. Shane, that's where the gold and silver comes in. I mean, does anyone not realize that there's a correlation between the prices of gold and silver and the US dollar? Don't worry, Donald Trump and his rich kids are going to make it, because I do think crypto is going to go up. I'm not selling crypto, and not all crypto. I kind of got out of Bitcoin. It's not a crypto program. This is about the possible civil war. But I do want you to know that when this economy starts kicking in, meaning kicking in from a crash, you're going to see violence like you've never seen before. And we will kill each other. So that would be my ultimate solution on how I would handle Minnesota. And that is, you either, meaning if I was right, you either cooperate with us, we're talking to the state government, cooperate with us, or you're done. But that's never an option, not to the globalists. Because again, if it's done for one state, you're going to see something. Once it's leadership, it's the first mover principle. Once one state secedes from the nation, and it's going to be a knock-on effect. And the government doesn't want that. I mean, God forbid it got like that. That's why you're seeing Trump. I'm telling you, Trump has got some big cojones, but he understands the system too, because he works for the globalists. And he knows well too, if this thing in Minnesota keeps on, this could be big, like a civil war. And that means he loses all of his money. Remember, the corporations get big and strong, but at the end of the day, they don't want to lose their piece of the pie. So now, why is Donald Trump talking with Tim Walz? They're trying to figure out something to calm things down. Because at the end of the day, they don't want to split. They want to keep their pie together because they eat the biggest piece of the pie. Him and Donald Trump's rich kids, along with these Democrats too. These people are filthy rich and corrupt, and we work for the globalist corporations. But that would be one of the things that is a potential solution. But in the meantime, to send these knucklehead ICE agents into these states when they're strewn with American citizens, that's not a good formula, people. So I'd say another way is maybe a tactical solution is focus on foreign nationals. And I would make it from the director of Homeland Security, this little toots. I'd say unless U.S. citizens are truly a threat to you, just whatever, just focus on foreign nationals and don't mess with them. But if they come to a threat, but that man that got shot, he was not a threat. He was armed legally. He wasn't a threat, people. We know that. Soon as the guy got pepper spray, what was he doing? He never reached for his gun. He was a camera. He was out of it. He was gone. But they want to push, and I'm telling you, law enforcement does that. I've had stories in the FBI that I've said many times. Many people that are bullies or were bullied want to go into law enforcement. Why? Because they want to be a bully. They want to continue being a bully, or they want to become a bully. A lot of these law enforcement, they get their rocks off on it. Look at it. It was like, 5 different guys punching this guy, doing it. That's law enforcement anyways. Didn't want to be a part of it. But I'd say, again, focus when it comes to leadership, focus on judgment. You don't have to change your political ideology. You could still support Trump, the MAGA era. That was a bad shoot. Just is what it is. Let's go. If there's any questions, and then we'll end it here. I'm about to get the hell out of the US dollars. Yeah, you're going to see silver's going up. I mean, again, this is not out of the blue. And don't fool yourself. Trump knows that. I think that's why his family is getting big both into crypto and to gold. I mean, I'm sure there was something about Trump investing in gold, but if I said 2 great assets to hold, gold and silver, crypto, but be careful. There's a lot of crypto that's going to go to shit. It's going to go to shit. There's a few of them, but we are going into that realm. And that's when it's going to really kick in America, is when you start seeing economic hardship and I think it's coming, you're going to see violence on a whole new scale. And then you're going to look at me and say, like, the people's like, we'll never kill each other. Like we're one big family in America. We're a corporation. We generally don't care. That's what I'm saying. In fact, I told you, if you don't want to thank me for my military service, or you don't want to thank military veterans for their service, I get it. I don't know what the hell we're serving. It's like one big corporation. All it seems to be is for the money. I don't know what value systems we have anymore in America. And once that money train stops, oh, you're going to see violence never heard. We are going to smoke each other the way it is. But until then, we'll see it. All right. And I don't think we have any more questions. So David Baumblatt from Terrabin Leadership, it is what it is. You could keep your principles, but you still have to call a spade a spade. That was a bad shoot. That's not saying to change your political ideology. If you're pro-MAGA and you're pro-Trump and you're pro-ICE, I get it. You still do what you're doing. But that was a bad shoot. And I really feel sorry for that guy and his family, even though he might have been a liberal and we don't get along, just like that black guy in the Dana Bash or whatever her name is. We're probably not very aligned from political ideology, but it is what it is. I truly believe that was an innocent man. He got smoked in broad daylight, and it's sad because at the end of the day, if you're going to be a nationalist, you should care about your fellow citizen. I know 350 million Americans. I don't know who an American citizen that is anymore, but it's at least a try. But anyway, David Baumblatt from Terrabin Leadership, thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. Lead to victory.